Well, good afternoon. Hello, everyone. My name is Janine Connolly. I'm in Dallas, Texas. I'm wearing a gray and white jacket over a hot pink dress. My pronouns are she and her. Welcome to the DC Disabled Heroes Lesson Plans release. We're very glad that you're here. Before we get started, I just would like to let you know about some upcoming events that we have planned. We have a series of events coming up over the next few weeks. Starting next week on May 4th, please join us for a discussion with Peter Kovler, chairman of the Judy and Peter Blum, Kovler Foundation and lead private funder of the FDR Memorial. Here you'll learn about what it takes to create a presidential memorial. Also, this year we are celebrating the 25th anniversary of the FDR Memorial. We hope you'll join us on May 10th and 11th for some special anniversary events. And finally, in June, we'll be hosting the University of District Columbia, their teacher professional development workshops. This will be actually in July and it will be virtual. We'll be posting links to all of these events so that you can find out more and register. They will be posted in the chat. So I just want to introduce now, we also, excuse me, I jumped ahead. We do have ASL interpretation available. We are presenting in gallery view, so the interpreter should always be visible. And I will be posting the instructions for the ASL in the chat as well. I'd like to now introduce you to Mary Dolan, co-founder and executive director of the FDR Memorial Legacy Committee. Mary?
Unmute. Okay, you do have to hear me. Here we go. Now I gotta find my thing. Uh-oh. Hold on, guys. Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Mary Dolan. I am co-founder and executive director of the FDR Memorial Legacy Committee. I'm a white woman with graying shoulder-length hair, black t-shirt, and a brown jacket, and I use she and her. The FDR committee was co-founded in 2019 by myself, Jane DeLand, and Jim Dixon. It is a citizen-led organization with the mission to promote education about the FDR Memorial in Washington, D.C., improve inclusion and accessibility so all visitors can experience the memorial and preserve the memorial for future generations. The organization was born out of the successful disability-led campaign in the 1990s, led by Mike DeLand, Jim Dixon, and Alan Reich for disability representation at the memorial. And we're committed to sharing the diverse perspectives of the Roosevelt era and that era's legacy today. I am very proud of what we are going to present to you today. I want to thank Humanities DC for funding this project and in believing in the importance of these stories. Thank you to all of our donors who make this work possible, especially the Gordon and Laura Gund Foundation. This project was completed through a collaborative effort from several amazing individuals, and some of them are on this panel today, and you'll hear from them. But there were also a lot of others who worked behind the scenes. Thank you, each and every one of you. Be sure, as Janine told you, please check out our upcoming events. We will absolutely fill your social calendar with the great things that are going on, and you can learn about them. She has them in the chat, but also spend some time on our website at www.fdr, as in Franklin Delano Roosevelt, memoriallegacy.com, and see what is coming on up. And also, you know, we are a nonprofit. But we do have to have some profit. So we do have a yellow donate button on our website. And so we encourage you to donate, and all donations up to $100,000 this year are being matched by the Gordon and Laura Gund Foundation. So please help and be a part of that. Now I'd like to ask Tracy Mullery to say a few words. She is the grants coordinator at Humanities DC, the lead funder of this project. Tracy, if you would please say a few words.
Hey, thank you for the introduction, Mary. My name is Tracy Mullery. I'm a white woman with dark blonde shoulder length hair, and I'm wearing a black shirt and gray sweater. I wanted to thank the FDR Memorial Legacy Committee and all those involved in this project for their work in creating these lesson plans, sharing the stories of underrepresented communities, creating a framework to teach educators and students about disability history, to foster greater inclusion and promotion and to promote understanding is certainly not easy work. So Humanities DC is grateful to this team for taking on this work and for the opportunity for us to help fund this project. We look forward to working with the FDR Memorial Legacy Committee in the future. Just a note that this project was partially funded through Humanities DC's 2021 Mini Vision Grant, and that was made possible by the DC Commission of the Arts and Humanities Grants Program. So Humanities DC is the Humanities Council for Washington, DC, and we aim to enrich the quality of life, foster intellectual stimulation, and promote cross-cultural understanding and appreciation of local history in all neighborhoods of the district through humanities programs and grants. So I'm so excited to learn more about these lesson plans created by the FDR Memorial Legacy Committee and this team of wonderful folks, and how these lesson plans will be used to educate and inspire students in DC and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tracy, and thank you to Humanities DC. You all have really helped catapult us into another level. It means a great deal to have your thoroughness of review and your support. So thank you so much for that. Now I have the great pleasure of introducing my friend and colleague, Jane DeLand, and my fellow co-founder of the FDR committee. Jane serves as vice chair of the board of directors and also is a significant funder of the organization and also a tremendous brain behind the operation. I had the honor of working under the leadership of her husband, Mike DeLand, at the National Organization on Disability, and watched him and my other colleagues, including Alan Reich and Jim Dixon, as they were leading the fight for the wheelchair statue that got added to the FDR Memorial. Mike is profiled in one of the lesson plans we are releasing today. I learned a great deal from Mike, and it was an absolute honor to help preserve his legacy with this lesson plan. So thank you, Jane, for being with us today, and I'd like to ask you to share some remarks.
Thank you, Mary, and thank you for your kind words about Mike. I'm a white woman wearing a small hat and a green jacket. I also want to thank Humanities DC for preserving the legacy of the fight for the wheelchair statue, for which my husband Mike campaigned so tirelessly for 6 years, and which he considered to be his most enduring accomplishment. Thank you for making it possible to preserve his story and those of Judy and Nick as well. I have 4 young grandchildren, and I look forward to seeing the lesson plans circulated around schools across the country. Thank you to all the donors who have been supporting our work, as Mary had mentioned, especially the Gordon and Laura Gunn Foundation and the Judy and Peter Blum Kopler Foundation. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you for everything you've been doing to promote the work and this organization. So I get to introduce to you someone who is featured in one of our lesson plans, and she is one of our DC disabled heroes, and that is Judy Heumann. You may have seen her in Crip Camp. Maybe you saw her on Trevor Noah, or maybe you caught her on the Oscars red carpet. But before she was doing all of those things, she was leading sit-ins. She was stopping traffic in New York City and fighting for the rights of Americans with disabilities. She is a living legend, full stop. We're thrilled to release a lesson plan about Judy today, and we're just absolutely honored to have you here to say a few words of and share some time with us. So Judy, if you would, please, thank you.
So someone just wrote that people can't see the interpreter and they can't get gallery view. So is the interpreter pinned?
The interpreter is pinned. If they go up into the right-hand corner where the view, do they see view in the upper right-hand corner?
I don't know. It was something that came in on the chat.
When you read the chat, he's saying that he could see us, but now he cannot. Can you just spotlight me, please? Or make me a co-host and I'll take care of spotlighting myself. Thanks. Let's see if that makes it work. Problem is it will remove pinned videos that are currently set.
It says no option to view.
Can you see the interpreter now?
I don't see any. Yes, I can see the interpreter. Great. So thank you, Mary and Jane and everyone who's been working on this, and obviously Alan and Mike, and Jim Dixon, who were really the leaders, shakers in the 90s when the FDR Memorial first opened, minus any real explanation of the president and his disability and how he in fact led the country as a post-polio survivor. So I'm happy to be here today. I'm a member of the advisory board of the FDR Memorial Legacy Committee. And as a subject of one of the lesson plans, I am a white disabled woman. I have red glasses and brown hair with highlights. I use a motorized wheelchair and I'm wearing a Frida Kahlo t-shirt and sitting in the foyer of my husband's in my apartment in Washington, DC. I also want to thank Humanities DC for funding and the FDR Memorial Legacy Committee for writing these lesson plans, which I think you will all find very, really important. I really like the depth of the work that they've done, and I think it will really help provoke very meaningful discussions, not only in relationship to the FDR Memorial, but I think it gives a great example of what good interactive sessions can look like for students. And what they're starting with, what this is looking at is FDR. But I think for those of you who are teachers and are always looking at ways of sharing information, I think it's a great model. What I love about this work is that it's based on the documentation of disability history, which I think many people don't know much about, and I know a reasonable amount about, but I know there are many things I don't know because we haven't been really seriously looking at disability in as intense a way as other movements have looked at race and gender and religion. I think one of the examples that comes out of the FDR Memorial is the importance of highlighting people of note. And people of note, that's a very broad definition. So you have people who are national, international, state, and local. And I also think that it's really important for people in understanding the history of our communities and different subject matters, in this case, disability, who are the shakers and leaders in local communities who've really, for example, been playing an important role in advancing disability studies or disability inclusion. There's a power and pride in the disability, in our disability history, and we must pass it on to new generations. But additionally, we must encourage existing generations to look around at who the leaders in the communities are and recognize the importance of history and how history influences the future. The fight for the wheelchair statue is just one of many epic battles waged by the disability community for equality, access, and representation. Those of you who've seen Crip Camp, and if you haven't, please do, will know that these victories by the disability community don't come easy. Crip Camp can be seen on Netflix or on YouTube. It was produced by Higher Ground, which is President Obama and Michelle Obama's company. It was nominated for an Academy Award in 2020 under documentaries. As I was saying, we know that these victories are ones that don't come easily. And when we look at other movements, paraphrasing Dr. Martin Luther King, movements and change don't come easily. Moving towards justice is a complex situation that requires really in-depth commitment and knowledge of many. I suggest that when you look at the materials around history and disability relating to the FDR Memorial, that you also look at, as I was saying a few minutes ago, other opportunities to identify people in communities who also are playing a leadership role. So thank you, Mary, very much for asking me to speak. And I really appreciate the opportunity to work with you all on the FDR project. And I was telling Mary yesterday that when I received a call, and I guess it was 1993 or 94, from Alan Reich, I was a Clinton appointee at the Department of Education. And they were talking about the FDR Memorial opening up and how they wanted to fight to get a statue of the president in a wheelchair. And I thought, this is a really great thing to do, but I knew it was not going to be anything easy. And the fact that they were able to do it in 6 years, I know that seems like a long time, but when you think about how long it's taken to do other things, 6 years, I think, really demonstrated some of the changes that are in fact going on in our country, with a little more emphasis on disability as it pertains to obtaining justice for excluded populations. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Judy. And yeah, you're right. I mean, the 6 years, it seemed like a long time at the time, and I kind of came of age while during that period of time, having joined the organization in 1995, and then stayed on. But now it seems like such a short amount of time that for the tremendous change that was made through the addition of that wheelchair statue, because now 3 million people a year go to the FDR Memorial, and the first thing that they see is FDR seated in a wheelchair. And were it not for those 6 years of intense, focused campaign work and late nights and all those types of things that you know, and lots of just lots of conversations and endless amounts. And this and the internet was barely even around at that time. it was time extremely well spent, and I think really provides a wonderful case study for the what it takes to change public discourse, what it takes to change how history is shown and taught. And that's really what led us to do this project.
I think, Mary, what's also very interesting, if you ever go down to the memorial and just kind of stand around the beginning, if you see any disabled kids, for example, or adults who come in, the first thing they do is go and sit next to the statue and take a picture. And it's so exciting to see how people relate to it on a personal level. And I think what people learn going through the entire memorial, and the fact that the statue is the first thing that people see and read, I think is really important.
Absolutely. So if you all haven't been there, please do visit the FDR Memorial, but you're absolutely right. And for folks within the disability community, that's our place. I mean, we fought tooth and nail for that statue. It's hallowed ground for the disability community. And it is a place of great honor. So thank you for bringing that up, Judy. So, you know, if we don't teach people about the stories that go behind, you could, let me rephrase that. You could bring these students, you could bring the 3 million people to the FDR Memorial and they can look at the granite, but it's our responsibility as the organization that we are to bring it to life and to find the narratives that are going to speak to new generations of people. And, you know, there's been a lot of scrutiny about memorials and monuments in our nation, and that's been right to do so. And so we're really honored to be part of sort of deconstructing some of the education that's going on about our nation's memorials and building up the stories and the educational materials so that we are uncovering and giving light to stories that haven't always been at the fore. And one of those is the disability history of the FDR Memorial. Now, mind you, we do have in our sites many other narratives related to the memorial that we are looking forward to working on. But since we are an organization born out of the disability community, this was our absolute first point of order. So, but, you know, as while I write the grants and I come up with the ideas, and then sometimes then I sit there after, if we're lucky enough to get the grant, and then we're told we have to actually implement what we said we were going to do. And then I say, oh dear, I need help. And so I luckily was introduced to Dr. Rosalie Boone, who you're going to meet very soon. She is a retired professor from Howard University, an educator. And when I was beginning to look into what we had promised to Humanities DC, and luckily Professor Kingberry put me in touch with Dr. Boone. And Dr. Kingberry was a tremendous collaborator, and Dr. Boone really helped deliver the goods on all of this. I'd like to just identify her a little further because I want to tell you all about how she just was able to push all of us on this type of project. She's one of those types of people. She was one of those types of teachers who, even though you didn't want to spend a little bit of extra time and you didn't want to think extra and work a little harder, but she had that magic to push you a little bit further. And then you produced more than you ever thought you could. And so she's got that talent. So I want to publicly thank Dr. Boone for spending your time with us and your talents. And if you would please share with us some of the particular aspects of the project, how we came to what we produced, and showcase some of the special parts of the lesson plans. Dr. Boone.
Okay, thank you, Mary. I'm an African-American woman, have short brown hair today. I'm wearing a black camisole and a light green sweater. And I go by her and she. First of all, I want to say that the development and the presentation of these lesson plans was indeed a real team effort. I'm very proud of the ultimate product that has been produced. And I'm also very acutely aware that it would not have happened without the valuable and the unique contributions of all of the individuals involved. So thank you to all of those that I've had the pleasure, and it has been a pleasure, of working with. Throughout the development of the lesson plans, we had a couple of major considerations. One of those considerations was the perspective of teachers. For example, we knew that teachers need lesson plans that are grounded in sound pedagogical theory. We used the 5E model, which is a constructivist learning model drawn initially from science, and it encompasses 5 phases: engage, explore, explain, elaborate, and evaluate. So you'll see each of those phases indicated in the lesson plans. That approach helps students to build a strong foundation of knowledge through active participation, and it also encourages higher order thinking. Another concern that we had with regard to teacher needs and perspectives was we wanted to make sure that the plans were welcoming and accessible, even though some of the content might be new to some teachers. So for example, you will note in the lesson plans that the resources are live links that teachers can access directly, or in the case of worksheets or directions that they can print out for their immediate use and distribution to students. We know that teachers are continually concerned about the whether or not, or the extent to which their instruction is referencing or is addressing standards. So each of the lesson plans indicates those common core standards that the lesson addresses. If there are some teachers, I don't know that there are many anymore out there who are my age, who began their careers prior to the internet and may not perhaps be as tech savvy as some of younger teachers out there, we wanted to make sure that the lesson plan formatting was both clear and easy to follow. And I think we have done that. In addition to concerns about teachers, we also prepared the lesson plan with regard to the perspective of students. For example, students need content and instructional activities that pique their interest. So for example, and Kelly, if you would click on the Mick County lesson, page 3. So for example, the lessons might begin with a provocative or a probing question. In the case of this particular lesson plan, the question was that through history, we know that some people have been treated as less than because of some characteristic about them. So the question was, what happens if an individual has several of what we might call marginalizing characteristics? Suppose they're female and have a disability. Suppose they are Muslim or have a religion that is not the predominant religion in the country and have some other characteristic that people have seen as somehow distancing them from the center of American life. Okay, thank you, Kelly. Our resources also might feature a noted celebrity. And Kelly, if you would go to the Judy lesson plan, page 4, bullet 2. There are a number of interviews that are included for Judy Heumann. One of those is an interview that was done with Trevor Noah. Can you click on that for just a moment? So people can see that it's a live link. And just play to the part where he welcomes her to the show. Actually, that one's okay too. I believe that's the TED Talk interview. That's okay. I think we'll move on. The point that I wanted to make, and everyone will have an opportunity to access the lessons themselves. So it was just to demonstrate that there are a number of just extremely valuable resources that we were able to access and incorporate into these lesson plans. The activities that are included are designed to engage students in things that youth today are interested in. For example, there's an activity in the Judy lesson that asks students to look at pictures and to develop Instagram photo captions. Similar activities in the past would not have asked them to develop Instagram captions because we didn't have Instagram. So we did our best to ensure that the kinds of things that students were involved in, the kinds of activities, were ones that they would be familiar with and that they would enjoy doing. There was another activity, for example, that asked students to create a comic strip that might explain one of the key concepts in the lesson to an alien from outer space. The lessons were designed to encourage students to consider diverse perspectives. In other words, to put themselves in the place of others based on what they were learning. For example, in the case of Mike Dolan, who made a very powerful speech at the dedication of the memorial, students saw that video and were asked to complete an activity where they entered journal entries that Mike might have written following the dedication of that statue. So that required them to put themselves in his place and use what they had learned just to try to see how it might feel to have stood in his shoes. Of particular concern in the development of all the lesson plans was that they reflect the following attribute: that they be accessible for students with diverse learning needs. For example, we made some modifications to some of the very valuable resources to make them more accessible to a broader range of students. For example, there's a very well-written and lengthy biography of Mike Dolan, but the reading level of that one, I believe, was postgraduate or something beyond the middle school, high school level that we were aiming for. And so after having done a analysis of the reading level, we made a few adaptations that reduced that level such that students in middle and high school would be able to read it more easily. The plans had to reflect a variety of learning modalities and styles. For example, at the bottom of page 6 in Judy's lesson plan, if we can try that again, page 6, is that Judy's plan? There is, the bottom of 6, there is a, right there. There is a, that resource, there is a, has both an audio and a written transcript. There is an audio tape, actually it's probably a little bit above 6. Yes. That the students listen to the tape, but they also have the option of reading the written transcript of the audio tape. Okay, and finally, we addressed various communication or exploration styles. The intent was definitely not to have students have to respond in the same way for every kind of activity in which they were asked to express what they had learned. We had them, as I indicated before, create a comic strip, create Instagram photo captions, create journal entries, create a dramatization of a particular interaction that might have taken place, for example, between Mike DeLand and a student at that time that he perhaps had occasion to meet during one of the very first events where there was an attempt to raise money for the statue. So those are the various things that we tried to make sure that each plan did. And it should be noted that in each plan, there is a section, the last section in each plan. So any plan that you can go to, Kelly, that very last section is entitled Differentiation. That is the section that provides suggestions for strategies and for tools that teachers can use to enhance the accessibility of the lessons, such that they do indeed meet the needs of all of their students. Our lesson planning development process has been a long one and at times somewhat frustrating, but it has always been rewarding. And as the lessons are disseminated and used in DC classrooms and in others, we look forward to feedback and to their continuing evolution. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Boone. Thank you for walking our guests through some of the wonderful elements of the lesson plans. I am so fond of the work that we did together. I'm going to miss this brainstorming that we've all done. And I hope that we get a chance to work together again real soon. I have the great pleasure of introducing some other folks who also were important contributors to this project. One is, well, there are two of them. It's Donna Catapano and Aaron Duvall. I'm going to start with Donna. Donna is a teacher in the New York City public schools, and as I said, a contributor to these lesson plans. Donna is the kind of teacher that you hope that your kids or your niece or nephew, or frankly, just any kid will have. I'd like to, at this time, acknowledge Donna, but also all of the teachers across the nation who have done so much hard work during this period of time of the COVID epidemic. Thank you for continuing each day to educate our children. Thank you for all those extra hours. I know how hard it is even on the best day to be the teacher on record for students. So thank you, Donna. Thank you, everyone. And my hope as a former educator was that these lesson plans could be useful for those teachers and be written in a way that they can just turnkey them, and that it could really help brighten people's days and help move forward civic learning for students. So thank you. Donna, could you share with us some thoughts on the applicability of these lesson plans in classrooms today?
Thank you, Mary. Hi, everyone. I am a white woman with long, curly, light brown hair. I'm wearing a red shirt, and my pronouns are she and her. I would love to just take a couple of minutes to talk about the how these lessons are applicable, not only in the New York City school system, but definitely across the nation. So in collaborating with Dr. Boone and the team on these lessons for DC Disabled Heroes, which, by the way, thank you, Dr. Boone, for your collaboration and really causing us to think and really seeing things from different perspectives. And I learned a lot in collaborating with this team on this. But I knew that these lessons would reach kids for so many different reasons. So as a teacher in the New York City public school system, I teach, I've had experience with middle and high schools specifically. I'm always looking for ways to connect with kids in a way that jives their interests and meets their diverse needs for the very diverse population that we have. I want adolescents not only in New York City, but across the nation to see that in order to get to the big topics, like the Roosevelts, whom I admire so much, like the historian that I am, we need to first focus on the heroes behind the scenes and the heroes that make disability representation happen. So it's these DC heroes, Judy, Mike, Mick, that will not only reach my students because of the tremendous work that they've done for DC and the nation, but because of their grit, their persistency, and most importantly, their perseverance. I feel like from a teacher perspective, when we talk about being culturally responsive and being inclusive, I feel like sometimes disability is not put under that umbrella. And working with this team, really, it was able to shine a light that it needs to be spoken about, that talking about these heroes is cultural responsive teaching. It is social emotional learning, and it's reaching these kids with these different themes and these different qualities that each of these DC heroes had. So it's showing kids from all walks of life that their grit too can make all the difference. And as a history teacher, that means a lot to me, because it can show that I can really get into a good conversation with my kids about this. They can see themselves. They could put themselves in their shoes, especially with the diverse activities that we have in them. So it was just truly an honor to do this work with these wonderful people on this project. And I'm just so excited that others will finally be able to use them. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Donna, for working with us, being with us, for reaching out to us, and just really enjoy everything that you're able to contribute. So thank you. Another wonderful person who contributed to these lesson plans is Aaron Duvall. We're going to ask Aaron to say a few words. Aaron is training to be an educator, a teacher. She already is a teacher, but she's doing that coursework to get those licensing. And she's a student at the University of the District of Columbia, which is our wonderful partner. Arlene was a contributor, a great brainstormer, and helped us with the lesson plans with her creativity and insight. We are a DC-based organization, and we take that very seriously. And the FDR Memorial is it is the background, or backyard rather, for the children and families who live in DC, and where I lived for 30 years and where I raised my children. So it's really important to us that whatever we do, that we make sure that it's very relevant and speaks to the students who come from DC, are educated in DC, and utilize things like the wonderful FDR Memorial in their lives. So Erin, if you could share with us some of your perspectives, please.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Mary Sam Erin Duvall. I am an African-American woman. I'm currently wearing a black shirt and black jacket. I have long brown hair in braids, and I go by the pronouns she and her. As Mary said, I am currently in school at the University of the District of Columbia. I'm studying special education, and I am a lifelong Washington, D.C. resident. I was born and raised here in Southeast D.C. and spent my entire school career, high school, elementary, middle school, high school, even college, being educated, through DCPS and in DC. So I was really honored and grateful to have the opportunity to be selected as the educational intern for the FDR Memorial Committee. It was a fantastic opportunity for me, an experience for me to participate in creating this DC Heroes lesson plans. So I'm happy I got to see through the efforts of myself and many others that collaborated with on this project, that now children in DC will be able to learn and obtain information that I necessarily didn't have access to, wasn't aware of. In creating these lesson plans, I'm happy to see that these plans are something that kids are actually going to enjoy participating in just as much as they will learn from, I know when I was younger, living here in the city, I visited the FDR Memorial quite frequently. And being there, I kind of didn't take it for what it was, or didn't quite understand the story of Franklin Roosevelt until I got a little bit older. So it was really important to me that I get to put the information that I didn't have available to me then into this. So I'm happy that, students with kids from all over will be able to learn about Judy, Mike, and Mick, and learn about the importance of self-advocacy, determination, grit, and perseverance. And these are all traits that are shared by FDR and the heroes that were selected to be showcased. So once again, I'm super happy and proud of what we were able to create and produce for not just students and kids all over, but primarily for students in Washington D.C. So I couldn't be more happier than what I am now. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Erin, and it was a pleasure working with you. I hope we continue to have that chance, and you've just been terrific. Now, to bring it home, I'd like to introduce Professor Arlene Kingberry from the University of the District of Columbia. Professor Kingberry is a tour de force. She has literally put the magic into our education program here at the FDR Committee. So I might come up with ideas, but if I'm going to really educate students and make a difference, you need to do it right, and you need best practice, and you need scholarship behind you, and that's what she provides. She's a wonderful collaborator and partner. And just a quick pitch, she and I are going to be running the second annual summer professional development for teachers. So we hope you register. I think we have that information in the chat. It's also on our website. So please register if you're a teacher or you just want to learn a little bit more. We'd love to have you. Professor Kingberry, I'd like to ask you to say a few words, please.
Thank you, Mary. I am an African-American woman with long black hair, black suit with pearl earrings and a necklace. My pronouns are she and her. A major foundation of education and a key feature of a crackerjack teacher is the ability to tell thought-provoking, attention-grabbing stories that all students can access, regardless of their cultural, linguistic, or ability diversity. I would like for you to reflect just a moment on your favorite teacher. I feel that positive energy. Put that name in the chat. I will now reflect on the journey Mary and I traveled to implement the DC Disability Rights Heroes Humanities DC grant to ensure that teachers utilize and implement state-of-the-art lesson plans for our children. As the humanities scholar and professor of special education who prepares teachers to develop plans and teach students in diverse classrooms, my role was and is to help shape and lend intellectual authority to the project every step of the way, from research to execution. These steps include the following in the research plan. The team researched the history conducted by a dynamic team, including my top student, as you just heard from Aaron Duvall. We identified the problem. There were untold stories about Washington, D.C. disabled leaders. Therefore, we began our research with a review of literature from journals, newspaper articles, books, videos, and other documents that describe the past and current information regarding these great leaders. We identified the purpose to identify and tell the untold stories of disabled Washingtonians who've made significant and impactful contributions to the community. We designed lessons that utilize the best pedagogical practices for planning and instruction. The lesson plans focused on the trailblazers that you heard about earlier, Mike Dolan, Judy Heumann, and Jim Dixon. Utilizing local and national standards that address the requirements of state and local accrediting agencies, such as the Office of the State Superintendent and Middle States. Using accessible features to meet the academic, social, emotional needs of all learners. We utilize a toolkit, a UDL toolkit that I developed that consists of apps from Microsoft Office 365, which has the best class apps, cloud services with accessibility built in to meet the needs of people around the globe with different abilities to ensure that everyone can create, communicate, and collaborate on any device. It includes an accessibility checker and accessibility videos for all users. And this is free for all educators. Additionally, professional development workshops for teachers designed to provide them with the tools to review our FDR lessons and develop their own. I'd like to end by thanking the team for developing these high quality tech lesson plans that include high quality videos. I particularly enjoyed the video with Judy Heumann and Trevor Noah, as well as the video with Mike Dolan and President Clinton. The quality was so great, I felt like I was right there. I want to thank the DC Humanities for funding the development of these lessons on the knowledge of human cultures through understanding what binds and differentiates us from one another. We look forward to the impact of these lessons on students in the DC community and the development of additional lessons. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Kingberry, and thank you all participants for joining us. I did get a question that I just want to pull up for us, and maybe one of our fabulous panelists would be able to answer it. So the question, is rightfully so, that so much has been done to remember the legacy of these individuals and to create these lesson plans. Might there be plans for doing a similar project for others that are related to this memorial?
What do you say, team? Would you all work together again?
Definitely.
Definitely.
There's never a time I meet with you guys and I don't learn something new. So it's always an honor.
There are definitely a lot of individuals who are directly related to the fight for the wheelchair statue, but also, if I can, speak about other narratives related to the FDR Memorial that should receive more attention. I know the team is going to, they've heard me talk about this a lot before, but I'm really hoping soon that we can do something about the influence of luminary African Americans during the Roosevelt era, such as Mary McLeod Bethune. There certainly is there's a lot of scholarship and lesson plans already out there about Mrs. Bethune, but I'd love to see one that can be paired with a visit to the FDR Memorial. And in addition, the other thing that we like to brainstorm about is how to use all the other wonderful resources in DC, because there's a lot. And her house, where she did so much of her civil rights work, is right there in Washington, DC, and a statue of her in Washington, DC. So there's a lot of connections to be made. So that's an example. And if I haven't exhausted everybody by now, maybe we could all regroup in a couple of weeks and start looking at some more proposals we can all write out together. And Tracy, make sure you don't change your email, because we'll be calling you up soon. I don't know if
Awesome.
anybody else would love to contribute to that.
Well, the story is just beginning. There are many, many stories that need to be told that will reflect not only the legacy of FDR, but of Eleanor and the many people who supported them along the way, from famous singers to the Pullman Porters, African Americans that have really made a place in history, whose stories sometimes have not been told in this regard. So yes, we have a lot of work to do. This is just the beginning.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you.
Well, again, thank you so much. I want to take a special moment to thank Cheryl and Brittany, the stars of our ASL, and appreciate you just being able to help us make this accessible to as many folks as possible. Thank you. As a reminder, the events are in the chat. We have many coming up. The program has also been recorded. So if anyone joined us after we started, you're very welcome to come visit us at fdrmemoriallegacy.com, and we'll have the event posted there, the recording. And please keep in touch. We would love to visit with you again and hope to see you in the coming weeks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for joining.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.